Senier has asked, I'm preparing to write my third draft. She's still working on story, so structural. My first act is very short, and my first half of my second act, which is Act 2B, is very long. And now I'm working on better balance. The thing is, I don't seem to get any ideas for my setup. I know I need more to set up for my hero, but it just won't come. Is there some kind of setup checklist for great heroes? She's basically just looking for some inspiration on like what kind of things do you need to set up. Before you answer, Mary, I want to, she doesn't say what genre it is, but I want to kind of just poke in here from a structure point of view. There are a lot of great books that have shorter setups. I have read a lot of them. And I was actually just working today, I was breaking down a book called I Hunt Killers, and the catalyst happens in the first chapter. And so a lot of the setup work Barry Lyga does for his character is throughout the debate and throughout the second act. So it's not necessarily a hard and fast rule that you have to have, this much setup. So I don't think there is necessarily a setup checklist, but I would love, Mary, for you to, pitch in here on like, what kind of things do we really do need to set up with our characters to make it effective?
So some of the questions that I've been asking a lot are along the lines of kind of why the story starts now. And I think your question really you can't extricate character from plot, especially because we are the setup is character plus plot equals kind of where your story starts. But one of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately is sort of why the story starts now, who the character is at the beginning, kind of in their normal. And I think it's totally valid to say, sometimes we don't need a big sort of establishing sequence where we get the character in their normal and then the inciting incident on page 100. In fact, that would be dreary, and I would highly disabuse you of that idea. But I do think that we need a sense of sort of what their normal, their status quo is, and what is it about this event that's coming for them, the inciting incident, that is really going to challenge this specific character. Mm-hmm. It's like the idea of why this character for this story. Mm-hmm. It's something like, ideally, your plot is something that needs to happen to the character. And so I always go back to, well, who are they? Who are they right as this kicks off? And why does this kick off right at this point in their lives? Because I read books sometimes that spend way too long in the normal, mm-hmm. Before sort of really challenging the character and inviting them to make that decision to go through the one-way door, that decision to engage. I'm a receptacle of writing, teaching, so I'm very sorry if some of my terms kind of don't align with Jessica's terminology. But a lot of these elements, they have a lot of different systems for teaching writing, have these checkpoints mm-hmm. in common. But I would just say, for the setup, it has to be intentionally chosen. Mm-hmm. So why are you choosing to start today? Mm-hmm. And what is your character doing on this day that is interrupted by this inciting incident or whatever, this call to action or this choice that lands in their lap or that they make land in their lap? Why now? And I find that writers who are really struggling with their setup haven't necessarily spent time thinking about it in quite those terms of, why am I starting on today of all days? That's and great. What is the character doing when I've caught them with my opening?
Right. No, that's great. And I mean, in Save the Cat, we do sort of have a checklist a bit, but it's thinking about who is my character at what we call it homework and play. And that just means, what is their home life like? What is their work life like? And that, when I say work, I mean like the things they have to do, like go to work or go to school or whatever that definition is. And then what do they do for fun? And that's a great way to kind of show them in different aspects of their normal, because that gives you an opportunity to show their personality coming out in different scenarios. You know, what are they like when they hang out with their friends versus when they're dealing with their teachers or they're dealing with their boss or whatever that is. And then the other thing we talk about in Save the Cat is just the, what's wrong with their life. We call it the things that need fixing, and being able to kind of create a little bit of we call it the laundry list. But things that are, what's wrong with this hero's life? Like you said, why now? How is this going to challenge them? This plot point that's coming up, the inciting incident or the catalyst, how is it going to challenge them? And that can really come out by setting up these things that are wrong with their life. And those can be internal or external things. Or what?
Or both.
Or both, exactly. They can be a mix of both, yeah. If you enjoyed this video, we've got a lot more on writingmastery.com. Check the description for links to our blog, free writing tools, and more. Happy writing.